How you guys doing this morning? So, did the first San Jose, I guess, meetup or meeting of sort of local real estate investors, and again, shout out Lindsay for securing us a spot at no cost. That was a big deal because again, I'm happy to give up my time to talk about real estate and help folks, but I'm not selling anything, so I'm not paying for rooms, if you know what I mean. In the end, I wanted to make sure I took one slide from that 2 hour discussion and sort of share it with the world. I think there was one slide as I shared in that meeting that was kind of core to who we are and core to our message, and I wanted to make sure that everyone saw it. I won't be able to. I don't want to record the full 2 hour session because there's a lot in there, but I wanted to make sure I put this out there. So it's really about this concept of financial freedom and really the sort of 10 things that are important to us that I think sort of lead to financial freedom. And again, this is financial freedom via real estate investing, not something else. I'm only here to talk to you about things that I know. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. But before we do that, I'd be remiss. I don't do a very good job of this very often, but do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That would be greatly appreciated. It's the thing that we're kind of tracking as we head to the end of the year. If you like this video, hit the like button. Where subscribe lets me know that you enjoy the channel and the stuff that goes out every day or nearly every day. The like button lets me know if a particular video hit the topic or not. And then lastly, please leave a comment, both about the video or just if it sparked a question. Remember, we have a whole series dedicated to subscriber questions. So if you happen to have a question, make sure you leave one. And again, I'm the only one that interacts with this channel. I'm a one-man show, which is totally okay. And I'd love to hear from you. Last thing, the other series that's taken off are interviews with other real estate investors. So if you're watching this and you would like to get your story told, go ahead and reach out to me at mzuber@onerental@a-time. You can see my email in lots of these videos, or reach out if you happen to have my number or any other means. I'd love to hear from you. And again, worst case, leave a comment saying that you're interested in having an interview, and I will reach out to you somehow, some way. And again, if you know someone that should be interviewed, make an introduction. I would love to meet them. I think the more interviews we do on this channel, the more likely you're going to see one that kind of resembles who you are. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, these are kind of my core beliefs about financial freedom. They're ordered roughly kind of how it breaks down for us. But I wanted to make sure we sort of went through this and shared each of them with you. So the first one might be obvious, but often is missed. We heard from one of the interviews a young man, I believe was 25, going about playing good defense and good offense, right? So I think that's a great way to start. I do think financial freedom starts with good defense, and what I mean by that is you have to look at the expense side of your what you do every month. If you can either lower that monthly nut, how much it takes to sort of keep your lifestyle going, or at least freeze it where it is, your chances of financial freedom go through the roof. And that's something that unbeknownst to us that we did. The greatest example of that is obviously our choice of home. While we live in a very expensive part of the world, we chose kind of the least affordable option way back in the late 90s. And, what that's done for us is, keep our expenses low, right? We played defense, right? We could have easily traded up 3 or 4 different times, and we would have taken our mortgage and probably tripled it. And, if you could think about tripling your housing expense, there's every chance that Olivia and I would not be where we are. And again, people call it good defense today. We just called it sacrifice, right? We were willing to sacrifice some current, I don't know if you want to call it pain or joy or whatever that is for you, but we were willing to stay where we were and take that extras and keep on investing. Next, I think there's a belief that maybe I didn't appreciate before we got started. Live where you want, but invest where the numbers make sense. All the books I read, all those years ago, really talked about investing in your backyard. And if you can make that happen, I think that's kind of the best of both worlds. But it didn't work for us. We spent a year, 52 weekends in a row trying to find that magic street, that magic area in the Bay Area that made sense. And it just didn't happen. And it wasn't until we had that kind of sit down discussion around our kitchen table and Olivia sort of throwing it out there, that we kind of looked elsewhere and where we found Fresno. So again, live where you want. If you want to live in the Bay Area, in New York, Texas, the Bahamas, I don't know, Bali, right? Live where you want, but invest where the numbers make sense. This is a big deal. I didn't appreciate this until I was financially free and sort of trying to help others get going. There's a lot of cash out there, right? There's a lot of people that I know that have over the years lived below their means, saved, but they've been sitting on cash, and you should know by now how I feel about that. And I think cash is in a savings account or anything like that is a guaranteed loser. I think inflation is above the savings rate you're earning or savings interest, and thus every week, day, month, hour, whatever you want to call it, year that fits, you're losing, right? Because that dollar is becoming worth less than the money that the bank is paying you. And don't get me wrong, the bank wants it there because they lend it out at fractional lending, 8, 10, 12 to 1, whatever it is. And they're smiling, right? Because they pay you 2 and they lend it out at 7. And, they do that over and over, and they're, that's why they win. So if you don't know, CRAP stands for cash rich, asset poor. I think it is a guaranteed failure. I don't think it helps anyone. I think it's a false sense of security, saying I have X in the bank. I'm here to tell you that X in the bank's not going to work. It may get you through the first 2, 3, 5, 8 years of retirement, but unless you have assets like the rich that are inflation protected, tax advantage, are paid off by others, you're in trouble. The opposite of that, until someone on this channel helps me figure out a better 4-letter acronym, is now ARCH. It stands for Asset Rich, Cash Happy. It's the best kind of combination that I can find, the kind of opposite of CRAP, right? If CRAP is cash rich, asset poor, ARCH is asset rich, makes sense, right? And then cash happy, because I'm not talking about having no cash. I'm not talking about having no reserves. I'm not talking about not having some money in the bank. But depending on where you are in your journey, you need to be focused on asset collection and asset growth and things of that nature. And then as you look to get out, yes, go raise cash, go, if you want, sell something, whatever you want. But it's definitely a different mindset, being asset rich and cash happy. This is a big one. I get a lot of questions from people that are stuck. As we were, all those years ago, when not finding anything in the Bay Area that worked, right? We had our metric, and we didn't find anything that worked. And the one thing we did is once we found Fresno and we found that, only one property met our requirements, we pulled the trigger, right? And I don't know that a lot of people would do that, but it was this belief in our metric that we had, and it's nothing we use today, but again, we didn't know any different back in the day, and it's it told us a lot, right? We were willing to pull the trigger when we weren't kind of sure and all of that, because again, the property met it. And I'm not trying to hide what our metric was. It's just not what we use today. But real quick, we use the 1% rule. So if a house cost $100,000, it had to rent for $1,000, right? If it cost $300,000, it had to rent for $3,000. That's kind of the 1% rule. Again, we don't use it today. I'm not advertising people to use it, but that's what we had. And again, we found a house that for $107 that we could rent for $10.95. So just over the 1% rule. The key to this story is we were confident in our metric, and when we found a house that met it, we pulled the trigger. And I share that because I think there's a lot of people stuck in analysis paralysis, always looking for the perfect deal or the next deal or finding, something. And I think you need to stop. I've done a couple of videos on this, but you just need to stop. You need to go figure out what your metric is, get solid on that, share it with others, and then when you find a house or property that meets that metric, be confident in what you've done and pull the trigger. The other thing is real estate's going to test you. I've shared many of the stories. I think I did a video way back in the day around all the things that can go wrong with real estate. Check it out, from evictions to people lying to you to fires, and it's just bad stuff happens, right? Real estate still tests us today. I did a video probably just a couple of hours ago, talking about an opportunity I had to cash, a significant check. And because of the situation going on with the property, I don't feel good about doing that. And I've delayed that and quite possibly could cancel the escrow because it's not the right thing to do in my world. And, again, that's a test, right? I could have closed my eyes just, because it wasn't black and white, it was gray. I could have closed my eyes and been comfortable with gray, and, that's just not who I am. If it's not black and white in my world, I'm not going to do it. And that's just another example of how real estate tests you. The one thing that I believe, and this is important for everyone in a relationship, or everyone that's in real estate and then gets in a relationship, because maybe you start single, but at some point you get into a relationship. Your significant other needs to be on board 100%, and I'm not talking 99.9%. I'm talking 100. For several reasons. First, if you go back to playing good defense, point number one. If you happen to be comfortable making the sacrifice and choices, but your significant other isn't, they go out and buy a new truck, they go out and want a new kitchen, they want to, whatever it is, that's not going to work. It can't be a one-sided thing. You both have to be on board, and thankfully that's what I had in Olivia. The other thing is, I want you to understand that, again, real estate will test you, and I'll tell the Norris Drive story here. So again, I've been very open about our first property. We got it 107, rented 1095 after a year and all of that. However, what not many of you know is after the tenants moved in, they separated rather quickly. I think within the first couple of weeks of being in our brand new rental, the wife took off, and the husband decided to turn to the bottle and decided to take his rent money and buy more and more alcohol, and decided to destroy our place. Keeping this story short, let's just say it took us almost 3 months to get him out. It took another $15,000 or so to repair the unit after he was out. So in the end, this would have stopped most investors, I believe. Right? If you spend a year doing something, you think you solved it, you're feeling great, and then the next 6 months is full of pain, non-payment, eviction process, legal costs, seeing that California is very tenant friendly. Having to pay a mortgage without any rent checks, having to spend another 15 grand on a property that you could have used for another deposit on another property. This first deal was all kinds of bad that first 6 months. And it could have, if we were not 100% in this together, it could have easily boiled down into a conversation of he said, she said, I told you so, this is not for us. What makes you think you can buy 2.5 hours away? Right? It could have gone bad. But thankfully, that's not the case. We were both in. In fact, she was probably more in than me because I was at least thinking, oh my God, what the heck did we just do? But we just kept going. And thankfully, that story does have a happy ending. We sold it 3 or 4 years later for a huge profit. We 1031 that profit into an apartment building that we still own today. So while the story starts out as a huge test, you should know that it does have a happy ending. And that's typically what real estate is. If you hold on long enough and you go through it, the story does typically turn out well. But again, it's going to test you and probably test you multiple times. I think every investor needs to have a metric that sort of tells them to be careful, right? To kind of slow down, maybe get a more conservative. For me, that metric's affordability index, and I'm not the creator of this. That's the National Association of Realtors, nor am I the one that sort of had the genius idea. That goes to Bruce Norris of the Norris Group. But basically, you watch the affordability index for your area. And as that falls, goes from, I don't know, kind of 50%, let's use easy math, which means 1 in 2 families can afford the average house, to, in our world, 20%, which means 1 in 5. That's something to pay attention to. So in our world, if it ever got to 20% again in Fresno, we would stop and go, okay, what's going on? And then if it got to 15, right, it continued its way down, there's a very good chance that A, for sure we would stop buying. But B, there's a good chance we would sell a good majority, if not all, of our properties, because again, we'll just sit in cash and wait for the inevitable. So good news is affordability index, at least in our area, is still healthy. But if you look at San Francisco, the Bay Area, and some other high-priced areas, it's single digits, and that is really, really scary. And that's why I was confident declaring, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago now, that the real estate market, the seller's market's over. And time to be prepared, and flippers reduce inventory. Don't buy more because you're gonna go bankrupt. I think there's a lot of people that invested over the last 5 years that don't realize the market's changed. They're going to add to inventory, they're going to add to carrying cost, and they're going to be bankrupt inside 12 months. And that's just a sad fact. I do believe there's quality differences, and real quick, I think there's 3 different ones, at least that you'll find in the MLS. And you as an investor, you need to appreciate which one's right for you, because they all have different characteristics and are all right for different people. We'll just go worst to best. The first one's a slumlord property. These are ones that should be vacant, but may have someone living there, sadly. But really, it's run down. It needs a total remodel, new kitchens, new baths, new paint. I mean, just everything needs to be redone. These are the ones that actually I focus on buying. It's not something I recommend for full-time employees because they take too much time. There's too much risk. There's too much holding cost, and again, your variables time, right? So you're looking for return on time, and unless you're in the area and you have the skills and the relationships, it's really not something for you. It just takes too much time. And again, in fairness, it's not something we ever focused on until we left the workforce. So they're out there. They're always out there. They do have they're right for some people, but I don't generally think they're right for full-time employees, at least in my opinion. Then there's the kind of middle one, which is kind of the well-used but lived in. These are the ones that I mistakenly bought a lot in the beginning. And I call it a mistake because they consume too much cash, right? I was enamored with the cheap price. In theory, these could be $30,000 to $50,000 under ARV or after repair value because they're just worn. Maybe they don't finance. There's just lots of things about it. But my mistake was, when we started, financing was easy. So we would buy it, put 10 or 20% down, we'd close it, we'd try to raise rents, tenants would leave, then we're stuck with a huge remodel. And again, the remodel is all cash. And that's what really slowed us down in the beginning because we kept using what could be down payment money for make-ready money. Instead, what we should have done is bought the third category, which is totally remodeled or turnkey in today's world, because we would have been able to finance 80% of the repair. Right? If the property is, 200 perfect and 150 well used, when you do all the math, you'll actually deploy less capital in a fully remodeled unit. And again, what you're going to get is a lot faster cash flow because you get cash flow day one as opposed to 6 months from now. And there's just so much upside. So in the end, I think there's 3 quality difference you need to evaluate and ask what's right for you. There's the slumlord, there's the kind of well used, and then there's the pride of ownership or turnkey stuff. So just know what's important to you and think time and dollars. And then lastly, I've said this many times, but again, it's part of our core that real estate's a people business. It's not a business that's won in spreadsheets. You need to constantly be growing your network. I often tell people just starting out to set a goal of meeting 2 to 5 people a week, just because, again, your network will create deal flow. I would say half our deals that we do today are, created via our network. And some of those deals are from relationships we've had for over a decade. And you just never know where that relationship is going to come in. There's, just a perfect example. One of my constraints is good contractors for some of the units going. And one of the investors, wholesalers that I know is making a connection for me this morning with someone that they've used, and they had faith in. So again, relationships, when you treat people correctly and you do the right things, they often come back to you. So again, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. What'd you think of that list of 10? Do you have a favorite? Do you think I missed anything? Leave comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Again, these videos are fun to do, but I need to get interaction with you. So if you don't mind, again, hit that subscribe button to let me know that the channel is of value to you. Hit that like button to let me know you like this video. And again, leave a comment or a question below, either about this video or a question about that you have, and I will go ahead and add that to the subscriber questions video series. And one last thing, again, if you're interested in being interviewed on this, leave a comment below or reach out to me. Again, mzuber at One Rental at a Time. That's one, the word, so O-N-E, not one, the number. So everything is spelled out, onerentalatatime.com. All right, have a great day.